When night fell in the medieval world, eating stopped, not because people chose discipline, but because darkness itself ended the day. The medieval night was a boundary. Unlike today, where artificial light stretches the hours and food is never out of reach, the medieval world had limits imposed by nature, by circumstance, and by survival itself. Imagine a village in England around the 14th century. The sun dips below the horizon, shadows lengthen across cobblestone streets, the last smoke from the baker's oven curls upward into the cold night air, and suddenly life slows, not gradually, but almost sharply. Fires are banked to preserve warmth, candles are lit sparingly, and cooking ceases. The aroma of bread or stew does not linger into the darkness. For the people of this time, night meant rest and nothing more. Unlike modern humans who can raid a fridge at midnight or sip coffee under fluorescent lights, the medieval body was trained by necessity. Hunger, not choice, dictated behavior. The stomach waited patiently through hours of darkness, and sleep became a ritual intertwined with an empty belly. This was not some cultural ritual of self-denial. It was survival. To eat after sunset was an inconvenience, a risk, a luxury few could afford. Across the European continent, from the forests of Germany to the bustling market towns of France, and from the rugged coasts of Britain to the sun-drenched valleys of Italy, a similar pattern emerged. Darkness was a universal ruler. The human body, shaped by this rhythm, learned to function under scarcity. Those who survived the trials of medieval nights were often those whose bodies had adapted, efficiently conserving energy, processing food slowly, and allowing recovery while the world slept. In those centuries, the human diet was dictated by seasons, geography, and available resources. Preservation methods were primitive: smoking, salting, drying. Refrigeration did not exist. Once the sun set, the ability to cook or even light a fire became limited. Not every home had candles or oil lamps. Wood was costly. Fuel for heat and cooking had to last through winter. Preparing meals after dark was not just inconvenient, it could be dangerous. Open flames and thatched houses could spark fires, consuming homes and villages alike. Thus, the simple act of waiting for morning became a matter of safety as much as hunger. In monasteries, the pattern was slightly different, but the principle remained. Monks ate early, with their final meal often around the late afternoon. Fasting after sunset was not only spiritual, but practical. Large kitchens in monasteries and castles could prepare meals for hundreds, but working at night was laborious and inefficient. Even the nobility, who had access to more resources, rarely indulged in late-night feasts unless special occasions demanded it. The daily rhythm was ruled by light, not desire. The medieval night was also psychologically different. The absence of constant illumination created a world where humans respected the dark. Sleep cycles aligned with sunset and sunrise. The body, free from modern distractions, rested fully, allowing digestion to slow naturally. The concept of snacking before bed was foreign. Hunger was acknowledged, endured, and often normalized. And this natural rhythm had long-term effects. Bodies were more attuned to metabolic cycles, circadian rhythms, and restorative processes. Life under these constraints molded both physiology and lifestyle. It is fascinating to consider how this enforced fasting, not by choice but by circumstance, contrasts sharply with our modern habits. Today, night is a continuation of day. The hum of electricity, the glow of screens, and the convenience of ready-to-eat food have removed nature's boundaries. Modern humans eat whenever desire strikes, often ignoring the body's natural cues that guided our ancestors. But the medieval human could not. Food was a daylight privilege, carefully rationed and consumed, then left behind as darkness claimed the land. From the perspective of survival, the medieval night created a natural fasting period that shaped human health and endurance in subtle, unseen ways. The stomach, often empty for hours, forced the body into periods of conservation and repair. Sleep was interrupted by the demands of digestion, allowing recovery and maintaining energy for the next day's labor. In this way, the human body evolved in tandem with the environment, molded by scarcity and guided by necessity. Furthermore, the social and cultural context reinforced this pattern. Villages organized around the day's work, not personal whim. Laborers rose with the sun, farmers tended to their fields, blacksmiths toiled by daylight, and markets thrived in the safety and warmth of the sun. Once evening approached, life decelerated. Social interactions, meals, and work were all constrained. Night was an era of rest, contemplation, and sleep, and only the extraordinary events, a festival, a siege, or emergency, could break this rhythm. Even in urban centers, where merchants and artisans lived in crowded quarters, the lack of artificial light dictated behavior. Streets became empty after dusk, inns offered meals early, kitchens closed, and people returned to the modest warmth of their homes. Fires were banked for warmth, not cooking. Candles were expensive and saved for essential use. This daily routine, repeated over centuries, created bodies accustomed to fasting at night, bodies that learned to endure, conserve, and thrive under limitation. In essence, the medieval human body was a product of its environment. Nighttime fasting was not a choice, not a health experiment. It was survival, adaptation, and rhythm all in one. By contrast, our modern bodies rarely experience true fasting, never endure the quiet of darkness in the absence of constant stimuli, and often ignore the natural cues that guided our ancestors. The medieval night, in its simplicity and severity, offered a unique lens through which to view human resilience and adaptation. The human story in this era is a testament to adaptation. Every villager, monk, artisan, or noble lived by the light, respected the darkness, and accepted the natural boundary between day and night. Meals were consumed when they could be prepared safely and shared meaningfully. Once the sun set, the kitchen closed, the fire dimmed, and the human body, empty yet full of potential, rested. Hunger was not an emergency. It was a companion, a teacher, a rhythm embedded in the essence of medieval life. This is why, in studying medieval life, we understand that late-night meals were not part of existence. They were not forbidden by rules or religion. They simply were impossible for the majority, impractical for many, and occasionally dangerous for all. And in this restriction lay an unspoken lesson about the interplay between environment, survival, and human physiology, a lesson modern humans rarely encounter, yet one that shaped centuries of bodies, health, and endurance. And so, as night fell across medieval villages, towns, and cities, the final embers of fires flickered and faded. Kitchens went silent. Families retired to their beds. The world paused. Eating stopped. And the human body, disciplined not by advice but by necessity, learned to endure the dark. In medieval times, night was not merely darkness. It was a boundary that defined life itself. To truly understand why late-night meals were absent from medieval life, one must step into the world as it was centuries ago. Imagine the quiet village streets of 14th century Europe. Stone cottages clustered along winding paths, smoke curling from modest hearths, and the distant clang of a blacksmith hammering iron while the sun still lingers in the western sky. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, an invisible line had been drawn. The day ended, work ceased, kitchens closed, and life, in its rhythm, slowed to the pace dictated by nature itself. Unlike today's world, illuminated by streetlights, neon signs, and screens that glow at all hours, the medieval night was an impenetrable darkness. Only those with wealth could extend the day by burning precious oil or wax for lamps, and even then, light was scarce and valued. Fires had to be rationed. Candles were expensive luxuries. Ordinary villagers, monks, artisans, and farmers all shared the same fate. Once the sun set, their world became quiet and confined. Eating after dusk was not a habit to cultivate, but an impracticality they simply could not afford. Meals in medieval life were designed around daylight, both by necessity and by cultural norms. Breakfast was modest, often porridge or bread, followed by the main meal at midday and a lighter supper before sunset. In some regions, the evening meal might be slightly more substantial, especially among the nobility, but it still concluded well before nightfall. Cooking after dark posed risks. Open flames and thatched homes could spark fires, and the labor involved in preparing a meal was considerable. Without adequate light or resources, the idea of late-night snacking was virtually non-existent. The body, over generations, adapted to this rhythm. Digestion slowed naturally as the day ended. The stomach was empty for hours, allowing rest and restoration. Sleep was uninterrupted, aligned with the rise and fall of the sun. In effect, medieval humans experienced an unintentional yet consistent fasting period every night. It was not a diet, not a spiritual practice, though some monasteries incorporated fasting for religious reasons, but a product of circumstance, a rhythm dictated by environmental realities rather than conscious choice. Even within castles and urban centers, where resources and wealth were greater, the principle remained. Kitchens serving nobility were immense, employing dozens of cooks and servants, yet their work was still governed by daylight. Large feasts might extend into the evening on special occasions, but these were exceptional. The daily life of a lord or knight, as much as that of a peasant, revolved around light and labor, not endless indulgence. And the body, trained by centuries of routine, thrived within these constraints. Monasteries provide a particularly striking example. Monks followed strict schedules for prayer, labor, and meals. Their final meal often occurred in the late afternoon. After sunset, silence reigned. The practice was not merely religious, it was practical. Preparing food for hundreds in darkness was challenging, and consuming it afterward was unnecessary. Hunger was natural and accepted. The human body became accustomed to these periods of enforced abstinence, developing rhythms that supported energy conservation and sleep. In rural communities, the situation was even starker. Farmers rose at dawn, tending crops and livestock through the day. By evening, exhaustion and darkness made further labor or cooking impossible. Children, adults, and elders alike retired as the sun disappeared, often in homes warmed by a single hearth. Meals were shared, discussed, and concluded before nightfall. To eat after dark was neither safe nor necessary. The simplicity of medieval life dictated patterns that modern humans, surrounded by artificial light and constant access to food, can scarcely imagine. The seasonal aspect also influenced eating habits. Winter brought longer nights and shorter days. The scarcity of daylight further restricted meal preparation. Summer offered extended hours, but even then, the basic rhythm persisted. Night was time for sleep, reflection, and preparation for the next day. Food was a daylight privilege, shared and consumed in accordance with natural cycles. Social norms reinforced these patterns. Villages and towns functioned collectively, with work, trade, and social life all coordinated with daylight hours. Noise, activity, and light diminished together as night fell. Even festivals and gatherings adhered to natural limits. While modern humans can ignore darkness with electricity, the medieval world respected it. Bodies, behaviors, and even social structures adapted to the cycles imposed by nature. By understanding this rhythm, one begins to grasp why late-night meals were absent. It was not deprivation, nor intentional discipline. It was survival. The medieval human did not resist temptation or modern desire. The world simply made the act impossible. Hunger was not a problem. It was a constant companion, guiding sleep, rest, and work. The human body, shaped by centuries of routine, learned to function optimally under these conditions, thriving within boundaries that modern life has largely removed. The architectural and logistical realities also played a role. Stone cottages, often clustered closely together, relied on a central hearth. Cooking required tending firewood and fuel, both limited resources. Preparing meals in the dead of night was laborious and wasteful. Candlelight provided minimal illumination, insufficient for large-scale cooking. Thus, daily life naturally enforced a schedule that ended with the sun. Even urban streets emptied after dark, marketplaces closed, and artisans ceased labor. The rhythms of society, therefore, aligned seamlessly with environmental cues.
This interaction between human physiology, social behavior, and environmental constraints created a distinctive pattern of medieval life. The absence of late-night meals was not merely incidental, it was a reflection of a broader system in which the human body, the community, and nature coexisted in a delicate balance. Daily life revolved around light and labor, consumption and rest, hunger and recovery. Every individual, from peasant to noble, conformed to the cycle, often without conscious thought. The result was a population whose bodies, habits, and even social structures were tuned to the natural rhythm of day and night. The modern viewer may find this alien. Today, with 24-hour convenience stores, nighttime cooking shows, and artificial illumination, the medieval pattern seems almost unimaginable. Yet in its simplicity lies elegance. The natural fasting imposed by darkness, the alignment of work and meals with daylight, and the acceptance of hunger as routine created a lifestyle that was both efficient and sustainable. Bodies rested, communities functioned, and survival was possible without modern conveniences. Understanding this introduces a crucial perspective. Medieval humans were not ascets or martyrs.